You're listening to the Breaking Sound podcast, My Story, where we discover the full story behind the hottest emerging artists, their struggles, their successes, and what's next. My name is Cage Sanderson. Have you checked out our 24/7 digital radio station, BSR? If you love discovering new music first, make sure you download the app, which is linked below. This episode is sponsored by Spirit Airlines' Music for Miles program. More go now. Make sure you go check out the latest routes and low-cost fares at spirit.com today. We are also sponsored by Hype, the only worldwide official street-style fashion brand for clothing, bags, accessories, and more. Luke Burr is a UK-based emerging artist from London with over 155,000 monthly listeners, 7 million combined streams, and biggest song being What You Won't Do for Love, made known by the hit UK show Love Island. He also has an upcoming sold-out show at Scarlet London to more than 500 of his growing fan base. His self-named soul, R&B, pop sound curates an original throwback take for the modern listener. Let's find out his story. All right. So we've got Luke Burr. Welcome to the show.
Hello, how are you doing?
We're taking this from the start. Tell us what it was like growing up in Essex.
You know what? In Essex, it was really cool. I mean, personally, musically, it was so my introduction in performing. There was always so many pubs and venues and parties and weddings going on that needed entertainment, and I don't know if it felt like more than kind of, I don't know if Essex people like to party more than other people, but there was always so many opportunities to sing, and so that was my kind of introduction into the performing world, which was where I first fell in love with music. So it was great. There was a lot of opportunity, but I would say there wasn't like a ton of what was maybe kind of cool as well. In London, there was tons and tons of artists. In Essex, there wasn't tons, but there was a lot of opportunity to sing. So it kind of, my name got out really quite quickly when I was probably like 14, 15. As someone that would always get a lot of gigs and would always be performing. So it was fun. It was good.
That's awesome. So kind of even like before the music started popping off when you were like a teen, like as a kid, like what were you into? Like what were your hobbies? Were they music related?
So it's kind of funny. Like my dad first played me his soul collection. I remember in his van, and that just, I think when I was probably like 7 or whatever, even younger, and I fell in love with it, and I didn't really fall in love with it thinking I want to be a singer necessarily. I just fell in love with it, and I sung for the sake of it, and I kind of wish, sometimes I'm jealous of that. I'm jealous of that feeling, where I just sung for the sake of it, and so yeah, that was what really got me into singing. But all where I was from, I went to an all-boys Catholic school, which was very, I loved it, and it was really good for me in a lot of ways. But creatively, they didn't encourage that. It wasn't, and most of my peers, most of my friends, it was quite regimented in terms of, it didn't necessarily encourage creativity and encourage anyone to shine in that way. It was, you play rugby and you back your mates. That was very much the kind of motto and morals of the school. So it was difficult for me really to express myself. And it wasn't until I started to find new friends in different worlds. I went to the city of London where I really found a new way of life. So yeah, that was how it's kind of started. I don't know if I answered the question there, but
Oh no, that was perfect. That was perfect. So I like kind of touching back on like the, you obviously the soul records your dad played
Yeah.
were like super influencing for you. And I'm kind of curious, like what was there also like an influential like song or like an album that you would say kind of like changed your life? Like the moment you're like, wait a minute, I want to do that.
I think so. Like my dad played me the Soul Weekender album, and it had like all like Bill Withers, Kool and the Gang, Earth, Wind and Fire, and I remember listening to that and just being mad inspired. And then it sort of developed into the James Morrison's first album, Undiscovered, came out, and it had some songs in it, and I was like, oh my God, I want to sing. And I started to sing and sing. And whenever I'd sing and whenever I entered like a little local pub competition, I'd sing James Morrison, and then it went to John Legend. John Legend's first Get Lifted album was massive for me. Kanye West, and then I kind of listened to my dad's old soul records with a kind of a musical head on rather than just a kid who loves music. And I went into Stevie Wonder more, and I went into Donny Hathaway more, and I really, I guess, not necessarily studied it, but listened to it with kind of an ear of, oh, I want to do what they're doing. Do you know what I mean?
Studying the different genres and different artists to kind of
absolutely
find your sound.
Absolutely, yes. And that's always the challenge, because I want that to inspire my music, but I also want to be my own artist, you know. And I'd watch Coldplay live and just fall in love with that, and I want to do that, or Justin Timberlake. And trying to be inspired by all of this greatness and create what Luke Burr is, you know.
That's so cool. You did your research to find yourself in the music.
Yeah. I'm still doing that now.
But I think that's like a healthy way to keep growing, or keep rediscovering and keep going back to, okay, what am I? But like growing and finding these new sounds. And did your parents, were they on board with you doing the music thing, with your interest in that?
Absolutely, yeah. My parents have been so behind me. Like, I mean, on a hands-on level, my dad has set me up for every gig since I was like 14, in every pub. And we had some rough pubs. We'd walk in and like they didn't want us to be there at the start of the night. It was almost like, what's this kid doing, you know? By the end of the night, they'd be dancing to what I was singing. So that was the challenge. And even now, in, you know, like my bigger gigs, my dad will still come and set me up and still be involved. So that on a hands-on level, absolutely. And my mum, for me, for them, it's like they've seen how much pressure I put on myself. It's never, whatever I do, I'm not like, oh, I want to be singer because that might be the easy thing, or I can't be bothered to do anything else. It's like I'm obsessed, you know, and they see that obsession. So it's not, so they see the work that goes into it, and they'll back me whatever I want to dream, you know, and they'll just say go for it. And I'm lucky to have
that's
that.
amazing. That's so fantastic.
Yeah,
Like once they saw you had that moment, they're like, we're going to help you. We're going to help you get to what you want to do.
Yeah, no, I'm really grateful for that, and I'm lucky for that.
That's so, I love hearing stories when people come from just like parents who really just are so excited for them. I think that's like kind of the neatest thing, because music is something, it's such a creative thing, and it's not your typical, hey, like you're going to go be, a lawyer or a real estate agent,
No.
right? Where, okay, there'll be something there. Like you take
Mm-hmm.
a chance when you become a music artist,
Absolutely.
and it's something that you don't know how it's going to play out. So
No.
I think having like such a great family dynamic and that support that like helps you as an artist feel comfortable too. It's like one less kind of weight, right, on your shoulders.
It's so true. You put it so well, and like we were having this conversation the other day. Like people come up to my mum and be like, "Oh, you must be so proud of Luke after something really good happens," and she's like, "I'm no more proud of him after this good thing than I was the day before. Like, as long as he's doing what he loves and he's happy, I'm proud of him. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't. And what's more important is that he's a good bloke and a nice fella. You know, so the whole kind of achievement thing, yeah, it fulfills me, but for them, they're just happy because I'm happy. That's all it is, really. You know, yeah. So I'm blessed there.
That's wonderful. Okay, so we're gonna kind of now let's get into like those teenage years when you started singing and doing the whole thing. You
Mm-hmm.
entered a talent show, right? And you won. So
Amazing.
like what tell us about that, and like what happened next?
So, like, as I say, there wasn't the only sort of way to sing locally to me at the time of, I don't know, 12 or 13. I think I started to have a few piano lessons, and then I got a little bored and I started to teach myself some of the rest. But I knew I could sing. I had this something and I loved it. And anyway, I saw this advertisement for a local talent competition, and I entered it, and I hadn't been doing it that long. And I remember getting there and thinking, oh my God, like there was tons of girls who like they'd been doing it since they were like 3. And I was like, oh my days, like I'm so not good compared to these guys. These are so much more polished, and I just remember getting up and performing, and it was the best feeling I've ever had, and I've that feeling's been a drug ever since, and I could never get enough of it. And I remember winning that night and feeling so powerful and so good and so special that I could affect those people in that room in that way, and having everyone come up to me and say, "Oh, that was amazing," or seeing a reaction, and I haven't been able to get enough of that since. And I think that competition led to another competition, and I just started to enter all these little global competitions, and I started to get quite a lot of money from it as well. And all my mates were doing like shop work for hours, and I was like winning a few quid in these competitions, and then that led to singing in the pubs and the really really rough pubs, and sort of learning my craft there. And yeah, so that was how it started, and as I say, I've been addicted ever since.
Yeah, that was it. You're like, oh, I'm off and running now. I know
That's
what I
it.
want to do.
Yeah, 100%.
Did you do, was it like an original, or was it a cover song?
So yeah, at that point it was all covers, and it was all um, it was all songs of other people, and I started to write around the time I started to sing in pubs, and I was awful at writing songs, and I really didn't necessarily believe in myself as a writer. I wasn't one to write poems and like necessarily see myself as someone that could put stuff into words in that way, if that makes sense. And then it wasn't till later down the line, I think, when I was probably 15, 16, where I was spotted at another, like a bigger competition, like a national competition, that labels started to show interest. And when labels started to show interest, they'd put me in rooms with different songwriters and different producers, and I learned so much from that experience. And again, I wrote some terrible songs and like horrendous stuff, but throughout that whole time, I really was learning how to become a songwriter. And I started, I want to sound a certain way, or I want to sing a certain way. And yeah, that probably started a little later, when I was probably like 16 maybe.
I'm sure there are some people that are going to listen and go, started late, 16, what?
No, but like in terms of songwriting, I guess, as a singer, yeah. And yeah, and I guess that's not late at all, but I'm just saying, like, I speak to some artists and they were like, "Oh yeah, I've always wrote poems since I was like 9 or whatever." I was never that guy. I never
Right.
really thought about it that way.
What for you, when you were in the beginning stages of learning the craft of songwriting, what would you say though was like kind of the challenging part? Like, was it putting the stories to paper, or was it just the whole thing of like building the song?
I didn't have anything to say. I didn't have anything to say. I was a kid who loved to sing and was so desperate to achieve, but I had nothing to say. Like, I didn't. What did I want to get across? I didn't know. I know all that was ended up coming across at the age of 16 was like, I'm dreaming. I'm dreaming of this. I'm dreaming of that. Like, that was all I could write about. And I'll talk about this quite a lot. And for such a long time, I associated the art of songwriting in the same way that I associated everything else in life, which was the harder you work and the more you want it, the better you'll be at it. And I did that at school, and I did that on football. And there was such a positive correlation between the harder I wanted to do something, the better I would be at it. Songwriting was the complete opposite. The harder I wanted to do it, and the more I'd work at it, and the more I'd think about it, the song wouldn't be good because I was thinking too much. And it wasn't until I realized, no, I have to live. I have to allow myself to live and feel in order to write a song, if that makes sense.
Oh, totally. Like, you need
Yeah.
to get out there, live life, experience ups, downs, in between stuff, right? And then let it flow naturally, because it's definitely something that cannot be forced.
100%. And I was approaching it like an athlete would approach a race, and I still sometimes do that now. That's still my natural feeling wants to do that. I want to get up at 8 o'clock and exercise the songwriting, and there is an element of it to that, but it's not like, okay, the more you run, the quicker you're gonna get, and the harder you work, the fitter you'll become. Do you know what I mean? When you
Totally.
want to write a song, doesn't, like, you actually need to go out there and make a mistake and
Yeah.
live and forget to warm up or forget to do the thing that you're so obsessed with and see the world and go, oh, there's actually something like there's life going on out there that I can actually put into a song.
Right. You need inspiration somewhere, and it's
Yeah.
not going to happen just sitting in the studio.
No.
You do have to get out there.
So much, yeah, absolutely, and I'm still working that out now. I'll be honest with you, Cage.
Well, I think you are doing a fine job. I mean, from the looks
Thank
of
you.
things, I think you're doing it right.
I appreciate that.
When you first started, like also like producing your music, like how did you produce the songs in the beginning that you were working on?
At the beginning, I was like, I had no idea, and I always felt like I needed other people at the beginning as well. I always was like, I always also saw myself as the voice. That's all I saw myself as. I was like, oh, I can sing, and I knew I could sing as good as or better than a lot of people, and I knew my voice could connect with a lot of people, and so I was super confident in my voice. But almost every other side of me as an artist, I didn't really actually respect that much. I don't think I gave myself enough credit. I was like, I didn't look at myself as anything more than that. And it wasn't until I'd been signed and then unsigned, I was like, oh, okay, I didn't have the luxury of going to a different producer and a different songwriter every day. But I was like, okay. And I'd sit there on the piano and stuff would start to come. And I'll be like, oh, I can actually do more on my own than I actually thought. I'm actually all right at this. I don't need someone else. And so, yeah, that was, and now this, I know what my strengths are. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm not like Timberland and I'm not a super producer. And I've got so much, and I really want to learn to become a better producer. But at the same time, it's like, I know that I can write a song sitting there on the piano, and there's better people than me that are going to help bring that song to life, whether it be with beats or whatever. And maybe that's me, maybe it's not. That's why I always love to collaborate. But my main thing is now, because I spent so much time working with people who had hits and had like successes that really didn't give a shit about me, because they knew that they were working with so-and-so signed to Virgin the next day and so-and-so signed to whoever the next day. And I'm like, they weren't giving me their sauce because they weren't that invested in it. So I'd much rather work with people who haven't had the success but who really believe in me. And if that's only me that day, then it's only me, and I've got to do that. Do you know what I mean? And
For sure. Yeah. And I think you kind of answered like the question I really wanted to ask was, do you prefer to work with others or work alone? But I think you said it right. Like it just really does depend on that situation. It's like you might as well create something on your own that you know how you want that to sound. You know the vision you have for it, or team up with people, uh whether whatever they've done on their resume, it doesn't matter. It's just like, if you're going to collaborate, it is very important to find others that are like aligning with your vision, right, of the project, and go from there.
100%. There's no point spending your day with me unless you really care about what we're doing. And I'm not saying what we do has to be for me, but like I spent too many days with people who really just didn't care. Like it was just a job. And for me, it's like, well, I'm pouring my heart and soul out here. Like there's no point doing that. So now it's like, yeah, I love to collaborate with people. I want to work with the best people in the world. I want to work with Timberland and Fraser T. Smith. But also, there's no point in me working with Timberland if he turns up for 10 minutes and doesn't really care. Do you know what I mean? Like, just to say that I've done that. Like, do you know what I'm trying to say?
I think you're speaking the truth that like everybody wants to say that. I think there are a lot of people who feel that same way, and you just perfectly like articulated that moment,
Maybe.
What is like okay, whether you're though by yourself or with someone else, do you have a preference now of like what your process is when it comes to the writing? Like, are you a person that always starts with sits at the piano and starts with a melody, or lyric parts? Does it matter?
So I'm not like someone who, this is the way I have to work. But I have been like, I do enjoy sitting on the piano and feeling chords. Even if someone plays me a beat that's sick, I'm like, okay, what are the chords? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like nothing kind of hits me more than chords and you know, just a piano. And if it sounds good that way, then it's good. And yeah, so I always like to start off just on the piano, to be honest with you. And my best songs have been like that. And then you can dress them up how you like, I guess.
So the kind of touching on the piano, that's
Yeah.
clearly something. I mean, since you were a teen, that's been your like main instrument. It's what you go to now. Um, did the piano like what kind of in a way did that play a part though? Would you say like in your singing? Like, was there ever a moment where the piano was more important than the singing, or the singing was more important than the piano?
No, you know what? It was always I was always a singer, and then I could play a little, but I'm not like some virtuoso, like some guys who are unbelievable. But the piano would always just accompany me to sing, and I would always sound better next to just a chord than if that was played on like loads of instruments going around. Like I always connected. Sorry, I always connected to people more. I felt when it was just me and a piano. You know, that's how and I don't want an album of just me and piano songs because I think that could be boring. But um, I always felt like that would help me connect. But over lockdown, I played a lot of piano, like a ton, and I feel myself having got so much better, and I'm so pleased with that. And you know, like John Legend is probably my biggest idol, and how comfortable he is, you know. And you just associate when you think of John Legend, you think of him on a piano, you know.
For sure. Yeah.
And you know, like the dream is to be as comfortable as that for me. And it's a massive part, and I really do believe it's, you know, eventually when people think of Luke Burr in 20 years time, they're gonna think of me with a piano, I'm sure.
There you go. I love that. I love that. When you started making your own music, obviously, you know, your family was super supportive. Obviously, you knew like, yeah, I feel good doing this, you know, right? You had those moments where you go, yes, like I'm going to ride that high. Like, yes, I'm winning these shows and all of that, but would you say like was there a moment where you absolutely were like, boom, I gained the confidence to like make my own music?
Yeah, yeah, but like I probably now every other week there's like moments where I believe, okay, I can go for a morning, right? This is before midday, where I think I'm amazing and I am the best songwriter. And within that same morning, I think I don't have a clue what I'm doing. Who am I? I'm having an existential crisis. What do I want to say? Oh my God, I'm terrible at this. Oh, and then, I actually stumbled on a chord. Oh my God, I'm actually really quite good at this. Like, and that is a constant, like, that can all happen in one morning. So, in terms of, you know, being a songwriter, I guess it came from writing a song that people liked, you know, and at one point when I was signed, it would have been writing a song that the label told me was really good. And
Right.
then, you know, and then it would have been writing a song that you release and then fans tell you it's good, or you get messages, and then you get to a point where you're like, okay, like my last EP, I wrote a song called Butterflies, and people are like I was going through a really tough time, and I heard your song Butterflies, and it really helped me out. Like, and then you're like, oh my God, I can make that effect with what I wrote. But then you find yourself, am I just is my self-worth, is my confidence in my ability only based on what people tell me? Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it probably is, in honest with you, Cage. And I'm trying to work out a way to actually think, I know I am, and I don't need someone else to tell me I'm good. It's gonna feel good when that is. But so yeah, in answer to your question, it's like, was there a moment? Probably the moment was when you see the reaction from other people. But I wish we didn't need that, you know?
Oh yeah. Because it's definitely still a process. I think probably if you're a person who and I hate to almost say it this way, but if you're a person who is doing the music thing, whether you're a songwriter, an artist, a producer, all of it, one of them, right? It's like I think if you care about it more than, and I hate to say this because we all want to make a living from something we love, but probably take the part of, oh, I want to be famous and make a lot of money out of it. And really like, wow, I care about the music I make for myself and how it affects other people. And like you said, you have that moment where somebody can say, oh my gosh, your song Butterfly, like, wow, that it like changed my life, helped me through something. Those are like those moments where you want to keep having those like pure moments, right?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
oh, that's the like success. It's like almost not the other stuff. The other stuff's like great secondary.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you're kind of one of those artists.
No, that's so true. You put that so well. It's like how much, like taking Butterfly as a song that I wrote when I met a girl who struggled severely with anxiety. And then if that then helps someone else who's struggling with anxiety to feel better and feel a little less anxious on a certain day or a certain week or a certain month, how many streams is that worth? Do you know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
there's nothing that's not quantifiable. That's fulfillment. That's pure fulfillment. And streams and numbers, like, it's never enough. Like, it's like, it gets to 50,000. Well, I want 100,000. It gets to 1 million. It's like, I want 10 million. Like, there's not a goal of number.
it's like as they come and they happen, fantastic. It's almost it's like par for the course. Okay, great.
Exactly. Yeah. And they're almost dangerous because you think you're going to be happy when it hits 1 million, and you're actually not. You're thinking, where's the next million? you know. Whereas that message, reading that message, I'm not thinking, where's the next message like this? I'm just thinking, wow, that's really, really great.
Yeah.
Like
a little impactful. Does your what is your group of friends like? Like, are they musicians? Do they get what you do?
So it's really interesting. My best mates who I went to school with, and I put my brother in that category as well. It's so opposite to what I do. They're like 9 to 5, really successful, all sort of working in the industry, finance world, and for them it's so kind of alien, the world I'm in. But I think naturally, because we're just best mates, they'd support me in whatever I do, and I could be doing ballet and they'd be there front row every week. Do you know what I mean? Because because they just proud of what I following my dream. So for them guys, it's like to see that the pride on them when I do a show. They're incredibly supportive, but through music I've made this a whole bunch of other friends who I would never have met at school, from all different backgrounds, and that's also what fills me with so much joy about music, because music has enabled me to make friends and meet people who I would never have met living in the little bubble that I live in. And I've learned so much because of that, and I don't take that for granted.
Totally. When you went into like university, obviously your love of music keeps carrying on. Were you able to, even in that in between time, like did you find other people at university who kind of shared your same passion for the music, or were you also like a lone wolf in that aspect?
So I actually didn't go to university.
Oh, you didn't.
No.
That's
So
awesome.
I went to sixth form over here, and I actually did pretty well at school. I was like, I have OCD, so I'm like mad obsessed with. Well, I don't know if that's connected. Basically, anything I do, I'm like, I just obsess over being the best I can be at it, and it's mean I've achieved a certain amount at the expense a lot of the times of my mental happiness, and it's not always good for me. But it's mean like at school, for example, I did pretty good, and I remember the headmaster going, "Oh, you're going to uni, right?" Like it was like a given, and I said, "Oh, I'm gonna see if I see how this music thing goes for the first year," and I've realised quicker than that it was going to take a lot longer than a year to see how
You're like, but 3 months in, I knew I didn't want to go to university. So later,
exactly. But it was really interesting. Like within that first year, I signed a record deal, and it was like. And to be honest, I think even if I wouldn't have signed a record deal, I would have still pursued music. It was always going to be the thing for me, to be honest with you.
I kind of want to talk about for a little, just 2 seconds, like on the label when you signed that deal, like how did that come about?
Really just a random night. I was singing at an open mic, and there was a scout I don't even know if scouts the scouts exist anymore. I'm not sure, but at this point there was a scout, an A&R that was actually going to watch another artist, and they saw me perform and decided to invite me in for a meeting instead. And it was so crazy, and I was so young, and I'd been through, like, I wasn't completely like naive at that point, because I had interest, I think, from the age of 16 with all different labels, and I'd heard all the gas and I'd heard all the rubbish. So I wasn't completely naive, but I was still gassed, and I was still in these meetings, and it was a big company, and I was like, I was buzzing, and I remember I signed the deal, and I mean, looking back, I had nothing to say. In a lot of ways, I wasn't an artist. It could have worked in terms of, like, but I would have had to be a certain type of artist, I think, if it would have worked. I would have been a very young pop star who I believe, had a voice. But how long that would have lasted, even if it was successful, I don't know, because at that point, looking back, was I ready to actually have something substantial to offer the world? I'm not sure I was.
That's fair enough. Yeah.
And but it was still a really great experience. I got to work with, like, so many amazing producers and songwriters, and just I learned a hell of a lot about the industry. And a couple years later, I was unsigned, and it wasn't. I felt like I was dropped because I was unsigned, but at the same time, it was like the label actually folded, so it wasn't as brutal as, oh my god, it's all fouled, it drops.
You're like, well, what happened was they didn't want to. You're like, well, they folded, so here I am.
So that was, yeah. So, but I mean, it didn't feel any different in terms of, like, I thought my dream was coming true, and then it wasn't.
Right. Well, good outlook. You have a good outlook, I think, on the way you take the highs and lows of everything in your career.
Maybe, and but yeah, it was a great experience for me, and it's just like, I learned so much during that period, and I'm such a better artist because of it. So yeah, I don't look at that. Did labels, my one thought is, and I've never even said this to anyone, is like, did labels or did the industry look at me different? I mean, fans wouldn't have even known at that point because I didn't release anything. But, like, after that point, there's people in the industry who think, oh, he's been signed, it didn't work, so, I mean, obviously he's shit. Do you know what I mean? Or we won't touch him. It's like,
yeah. I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling of wondering, oh no, is my name, like, am I old news now because I was around for a moment, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, but wait, guys, hold on.
Yeah.
That wasn't my prime moment.
I know, but the thing is, if people think like that, it's like, well, it's rubbish, because who's to say I'm better at 19 years old and I have no, like, clue what I'm doing than I am now? Do you know what I mean? It's like,
totally.
I'm actually, so it's an interesting way of looking at it, and I don't. If people think like that, then for me it's like, well, I don't really want to work with someone who ever thinks like that anyway, because I think that's such a closed-minded attitude to have about talent and hard work, to be honest with you. Like,
oh yeah, you said that perfectly. I have to agree with you. Definitely. Because, when you do that, it's like putting people in boxes.
Yeah.
And that's not a fair way to look at. You could just easily skip right over, like, the most talented person you've ever come across.
You know what? It's so much of the industry, and I'm not that guy who's like, oh, fuck industry. Like, I'm not that guy at all. I love music, and I love how it works. But I think there is an obsession with hype that is very real, and it's like, hype only lasts for so long, and people can fall in love with something they've never heard because there's enough hype around it, and that's almost more important than hard work and talent and actual belief, I think, in a lot of people's eyes. And I don't actually think real people care about that shit. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
oh, I have to agree. Yeah. It's like the difference between, like, fast food or, like, a super good home cooked meal. Exactly. Like, at the end of the day, like, the fast food's super, like, satisfying. Like, yeah, I got my fries and my drink, but, like, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, this, like, chicken is so good, and remember it, like, 2 weeks later.
Yeah. No, absolutely, yeah.
My food analogy. Is it dinner time yet? Like, I don't.
Well, over here we've eaten. I'm stuffed. We had wings, so you're talking my language now.
Oh, perfect. Now I'm even hungrier. Okay, we're gonna fast forward kind of into like more modern times now, I guess, in the career. So you, first of all, you've spent like time in LA. When you were there, who did you go with? Like, what were your memories of your time in Los
Uh,
Angeles?
honestly, like Los Angeles, the time I've spent out there has been the best time of my life. Honestly, like I crashed on my manager's sofa out there the first time, and I just went with no plans, with nothing in the diary other than I just want to do as much as I can. And I remember every single day was just full with. I just got there, hit loads of people up on Instagram, went to every open mic, and it. I love home so much. Like my family are everything to me, and I'm so close to home. But I feel like taking away the safety of home for me is so important for my creativity. Because when I'm in LA, like there's nowhere for me to go in terms of like I'm not like back here. The safety of home is so much that it's like if someone invites me to somewhere or something, it's like, well, I know that I can come home. Whereas out there, it's like I don't want to go back to where I'm staying because I'm just sleeping on a sofa. And do you know what I mean? Whereas so out there, I just say yes to absolutely everything, and find myself in the most random situations, meeting the most random people. And I don't know if it's because I'm British that people might be kinder to me or react to me differently, but I've been taken care of so much out there. And honestly, like I can't talk highly enough about my experience in Los Angeles, and I'm trying to work on getting a visa to move out there either permanently or semi-permanently at the moment because, you know, like doing the shows for you guys was amazing. I've worked with the best producers I've worked with out there, like, and I feel like in the UK sometimes the music industry can be a little cliquey in terms of what's hot, what's not, what's cool, what who you with. Like over there, like I've managed to get in the rooms with some people that are so incredible, but they're like, "Oh, bro, your voice is amazing. Come through." Like, and that's led to one thing and never. Out there, I'm hardly ever in bed. I'm just like, I'm out, go back, crash, and I'm back out. I love it.
Like working, but that's what I feel like the one thing with LA, it's like there's this cool vibe to it where you can kind of go 24/7, but weirdly enough, like not feel maybe a burnout because there's really a lot of exciting people and a lot of exciting things to do.
So much. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, I was getting hardly any sleep and I wasn't tired. I was like,
You're just like so stoked on everything.
I was honestly, and it's happened every time. And I've spent like a good few months out there now, like, at a time, and I never get tired. I'm like, and I think that's it. It's just that excitement and yeah, honestly, it's I'd go to open mics where I knew no one, and I'd just say, "Oh, by the way, like I'm a singer. Can I get up?" And they'd be like, "Oh, just jump on at the end of the night or whatever." And it's like, and they let you get up and you start singing, and then if you're talented in LA, people just show you so much love. Do you know what I mean? Or like they
Totally.
respond to talent so much, and they're like, "Come back next week. You're our featured artist. We're helping you out." Do you know what I mean? It's like, and I love that.
Yeah.
I love LA's attitude to talent. I really do.
It is pretty phenomenal. It really, really is. Okay, we got to ask like just the fun question because people are going to want to know. Like, are you when it comes to the girls in LA? Like, do you think the girls in LA are cooler than the British girls? Do you think British girls are cooler than the American girls?
I mean, I'm gonna go with LA girls personally. But I don't know if it's. I think LA girls are so much more. I'm not criticizing British girls, by the way, because
Of
British
course.
girls are great as well. But I think American people in just as a whole are so much more confident, and it's so much nicer, like to be able to walk into a place and I don't know. I feel like English girls or British girls are so much more shy as people, or and so like a British girl wouldn't say hello first as much as an LA girl would, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, and I love that. I love that attitude of like, oh wow, like you don't have to work out if this girl's interested. Like sometimes in UK, it's like, is she interested or is she playing a game? Or is like, where am I standing? In LA, it's like, within like 2 minutes, like with a confidence. And I'm like, this is sick. I just really, I love that. I love that ability. But I mean, even if it's like a girl that, nothing's happening with, just in terms of a coffee shop environment where you can go to of a morning, like you can talk to anyone and people are so much, more friendly. And I love that attitude.
Oh, you're making all of us that are in California just be like, yes, see, we're cool down here.
It's sick. It's not like that in London. Like, say hello to someone, they're like, what's the matter with you? I'm like, I'm just being friendly. Whereas over there,
do I know you?
Yeah, exactly. Whereas
stranger danger.
I'm just being nice. Over there, they're like, hey. And it takes some time getting used to, but I think it's such a nice way to be. I really do.
Oh man, I love that. Okay, all right, back to the music. So
we can talk about girls, I don't care.
I'm like, we could just talk about people all day long.
Yeah,
That's cool. Back to the music. So we heard you open for Rudimental, right?
Yeah, I went on tour with
the game.
It was amazing, yeah.
How did you get that gig? How do you know them?
Honestly, I mean, I spoke about LA being the best time of my life, but if you had to push me on the best week of my life, it was going on tour with Rudimental to Australia. It was really weird. They knew of me, but I didn't know them at this point, and they had a singer that they usually use. So obviously, they have their songs with Ed Sheeran and Amory and all these big artists, but they obviously don't go on tour with them, so they need vocalists to go on tour with them. And the guy that they were using, or they'd been using for a few years, couldn't do this particular tour, and they called me up because someone knew someone who knew me, and they were like, oh, maybe Luke can do this. And they called me up to their studio a couple of days before just to basically check I can sing. And I didn't really know that was why they were calling me into the studio. I thought they were just, it was weird. So they were like, oh, can you just get on the mic and sing? And I was like, okay, this is like kind of, I'm making out that this is so natural for me, but I'm actually thinking, oh my God, like I really want to get this right. And they went, oh, yeah, sick. We're going to Australia in 2 days' time. Would you like to come, basically? And I was like, I mean, I have to check my diary, but yeah, like, sounds good.
Like, give me one. I'm good, guys. I'm free.
And it was just incredible. Like, so we toured Australia, and honestly, I was floating for that whole 10 days, 2 weeks, whatever it was, and I was so full of confidence. And I was talking about this the other day. It's like, I feel so much pressure in so much of what I do, and so much of that pressure I put on myself. But for some reason, for that moment, I had no pressure on me. I think it was just pure excitement. I didn't have time to get nervous because it just happened. And
yeah,
the first time I walked on stage was in front of 20,000 people, and yeah, it was. I felt like a rock star. I really did. And obviously, it wasn't my name on there, but it was like I felt like I was a part of that, and it just left me dreaming that I want it to be my name eventually. You know.
Well, you were a part of that.
Well, yeah. I was a part of that, and it was. It was special, and it just the fire was burning even brighter after that.
That's amazing. Do you have any like fun traveling stories, or did you guys get to like hang, like any cool memories from that?
It was sick. Yeah, I mean, like to be honest with you, like I hardly saw any of Australia because we were just out all night and performing all night, and I had to it just slipped all day because I knew that I was performing and I wanted to be good. But then, like, I loved the club performances, which I'd never done with them before. Like, going through, like, into, like, the biggest club in Sydney through, like, the kitchen. So I was feeling like a rock star at this point. You know, you got to go through the back door and then getting, like, the way you were treated was just, I was, like, so not used to all of this stuff. It was just, it was so special. And I, as I say, I was so confident. If I could bottle the confidence that I had in that week, I would be sussed, honestly. Like, life would be so good because I look back, I was like, oh my God, I was killing it. Honestly, like, even the way I was walking and talking, I wish I could be like that every day.
Well, it's clearly in there. Like you
I know,
definitely
yeah.
have it. Okay, right? So it's just a matter of like when those next moments happen. But
That's it.
I mean, there's proof right there. You do have it. You do have that. It's like you've got the whole thing. You just got to wait for that next big moment.
That's it. That's it. It's all about perspective. So yeah, no, you're spot on there.
Do you have any like crazy fan stories?
Crazy fan. I mean, like I get some really inappropriate DMs, which are quite funny. Um, most people are like are really cool. Like, to be honest with you, I'm grateful for people listening. I'm grateful for people showing interest. Like, not like none. Like some, like you get that feeling where like it might be a little obsessive, but it's like at the same point, it's like if it's healthy, I'm not like nothing's been too like outrageous. Yeah.
Nothing where you're like, I'm in fear of leaving my house.
Well, no, not yet, not quite, not quite. I mean,
So is
like,
that when you know? Is that when you know you've made it? When you
maybe. I mean, I've done some gigs where like I was talking about this earlier, where I've been like very inappropriately touched, and for me, like I'm really like quite chilled with that sort of stuff. I mean, other people may have felt a bit uncomfortable, but for me, it's like, oh, well, at least they're listening and paying attention. Do you know what I mean? It's like I'm cool with that.
they love my music. That's all I can ask for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. So now on to even more cool stuff. So you have this record, right? It's like being the number one on the Shazam chart in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Then go to being a guest on Good Morning Britain, which is a really big show in the UK,
Yeah.
not to mention all the press in the papers. How did you get your song placed on Love Island? And like, how did that change your life?
Yeah, that was wild. It was like it, and I made that song in this room, and it was like it was so cool, and it came about. I sent this record off. I reworked "What You Won't Do for Love" from Bobby Caldwell, and I was really pleased with it when I did it, and I was like, this sounds really cool, and I sent it to these people, this independent distribution company, and so they sent it to Love Island along with like a load of other bunch of tracks, along with the whole of the rest of the UK sending songs to Love Island.
Right.
And I thought nothing of it, to be honest with you. And I'd actually dropped the record quite a bit of time before, and not much had happened. But I didn't really care because I knew it felt good. And anyway, I got like an email. I think the day before, they were like, "Oh, it sounds like Love Island are going to use the track." I was like, "Oh, cool, great." I was excited, but I was also like, do you know how many times in my career I've had, oh, it sounds like this good thing's gonna come off, and it doesn't. So like I'm like immune to getting excited now. I'm like, okay, cool, we'll see. And I remember the night that it was on, I had a show in Shoreditch and a venue called Concrete Space. I think it was with you guys. Yeah, it was a Breaking Sound show. And
look at that moment.
I know, wild. Yeah, so cool. And then I'm backstage and I get a text through from my mate going, "Oh my God, just heard your song on Love Island." I was like, "Oh, sick, they did play it." So they played it and I watched it and he'd sent me like a 15-second clip. I was like, "Oh, sick. They've sent me like 15, they played 15 seconds. And then I got another message from a girl I know and she was like, "Oh my God, they just played your song on Love Island." It was like a 2.5, 3-minute video. I was like, why she sent me such a long video? And I watched it and it was the whole song. And then my phone was just blowing up. And I'm about to go on stage. I can't even think about being on stage. So I go on stage. By the time I'm off stage, I'm like top, I think I'm number 2 or number 4 or something in the iTunes R&B chart. And it was just a whole whirlwind. And then like, again, I was just absolutely buzzing, high off life. You know when you're like, you need a win and that win comes and it's like, and I'll be honest with you, the wave probably lasted about 2 months. And it was, sometimes it's like you just need those wins to know that the next one will come. You know, I wasn't under any illusion that the wave was going to last forever, you know. But at the same time, it's like it really gives you confidence that, oh yeah, this is why I do this. You know, I can connect. I am pretty good at what I do. You know, and it was so cool. It was so
And
cool.
it's like a domino effect, right? Into
Yeah,
the next thing. Like you said, you could get that win. Sometimes you just need that one win. And like in your gut, like this is the thing that'll just help kind of let's
yeah,
go.
absolutely, absolutely. And so many people discovered me from that. Gained so many fans from that, and then it's up to you really to just keep on going and keep on the next thing. Find that next moment, you know, because that one moment, that dominoes, yeah, but it's like, okay, well, you need to go again and again and again and again, and yeah, I mean, like that was such a great time, and yeah, yeah, I'm
And
buzzing about it.
well, and I want to just for those who maybe aren't as familiar, maybe with the sync world and all of that, like how you were saying, at first you're thinking, oh, cool, it's just a 15-second
Yeah,
little blip, right? And then you're like, realize, oh, they played the whole song. That is massive. Like
yeah.
a lot of people, they can get placements here and there. It's 15 seconds, 30 seconds. Sometimes it's just the music bed and not the lyric, or, all those funny little combinations. Like it's a huge thing when you get the whole song played. So that's just like amazing in itself. Something cool is gonna
I know.
happen.
It was wild. And because the whole song's played, it was like the big moment where the big power couple broke up or whatever. And that's why it was just getting Shazammed. Because not by the whole country. And yeah, when it went number one in Shazam chart, that was like pretty mad, and it pushed the needle for like every like paper calling me up and going, "Oh my god, you're like the kid," and it was like, yeah, it was sick. It was so cool.
That's amazing. I love stories like that. Okay, so Love Island, if you ever got hit up for that, would you go on a show like that?
No, no, I don't think so. I don't think my chat up game's good enough for that show. Like, and they always ask the question like, "What's your type?" I'm like, I don't even know. I don't have a type. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's always like, oh, like, so that has to be paired with like that type of person or whatever. I'm like, I don't know. I don't think that sort of show's for me. Like, I'll enjoy watching it. I've got friends who have been a part of it and or whatever, or acquaintances.
Like I'll cheer them on.
Yeah. But yeah, for me, I don't think that I'd suit that world, to be honest with you.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I would have to agree. Now let's kind of talk about like a little bit last year, 2020. We know 2020 was a hard year, but you kept like your spirits up.
Mm,
You released tons of music, lots of like internet live shows,
yeah,
New Year's Eve party, right?
yeah.
How did COVID though like affect everything you had going on in your music career?
You know what, right? I look, I'll be honest. Like the first part of this year, I was struggling. I think for the first time in a while, I just kind of like, it was just tough. Do you know what I mean? In that terms of like, oh, fuck, like this has just been so shit. Do you know what I mean? Like the world. But
Right.
I actually like. I'll be honest with you. Last year, probably the most productive year of my, or at least up there with one of the most productive years of my life. For music, I'm talking about. You know, and that's including the what we won't do for love moment. You know, being the year before. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't really accept that COVID was going to slow anything that I was doing down, and I just saw it as an opportunity. So I started doing a show once a week in my dressing gown. And the first week was like 40 people, then it was like 80, then it was like 200. And then like by week 10, we had like thousands of people watching and raising like £6,000 for charity. And
Oh, amazing.
it
All
was
for a good
just,
cause.
yeah, it was just sick. And then like I was collaborating with artists. So I love collaborating, and I know I couldn't do it because of whatever, you know, I couldn't see people. So I was like, okay, how do we get past this? So I just did virtual collaborations. A few of them went viral, like a few million views on a couple in particular. My following on social media over tripled. My venues, the venue size. I mean, if you're looking and like, so numbers are great, right? But it's like, for me, what does a number mean? Not much really, but the venue size that I'd sold out at the beginning of the lockdown, I think was Omira. So I think that's like 300. We rescheduled it and upgraded it twice because of the increased demand. And now
Wow, that's fantastic.
Scala, which is like 800. So it's like almost 2.5, 3 times the size. And that's all been during COVID, and so, yeah, the numbers on social media have gone up, but what fills me with so much pride is that like there's a ton of more people actually willing to spend money on ticket to actually come and watch me perform live, not just watch a video for a minute,
Oh, that's fantastic. Good for you.
So it's been great, and I yeah, we did a big New Year's Eve party. I think we had like 800 people in there. I started it I said every year, like, I do a party locally and get all my mates to come, and we sell tickets and we have a good laugh and a good night. And so I said I'll do it for my mates this year, and I thought it'd be like 50 of us. And I put it on Instagram, and everyone was like desperate for a ticket. So I said, oh, okay, I'll do it on Zoom. And it took me days and days to work out how to get all the tech sorted behind it. But in the end, I did like a subscriber list. I was like, okay, maximum 500 people can be involved. And it like well smashed out. I had to buy like a new Mao account to get more subscribers. So yeah, I think it was actually like over 500 accounts were involved, and there was like 2 or 3, 4 people watching on the same account. So yeah, it was a ton of people. It was great.
It kind of goes to that thing of like how you're saying, you go, oh, I don't want to get my hopes up on things, right? Like I do that. It's like those even moments where you go, yeah, well, I figured maybe 500 people. And then you're like, I'm sorry, how many?
Yeah.
Whoa, that's a cool surprise.
Yeah, no, it was great. And so in answer to your question, 2020 was really good, really good. I can't complain. Like I didn't, I think, well, I say really good in that sense, but I also didn't want to face the reality of it all, I don't think. So I just worked harder than ever. And I think, yeah. And I started a new podcast, which is amazing. And so, yeah, it was cool. I think I realized that I was just filling up a load of time as well with work, which I needed to address as well. But yeah, no, in terms of career-wise, it was really, really great.
Okay. You're talking about your podcast, and we definitely wanted to get to that. So might as well just chat about it now. Like, so the podcast is called Bangers and Mash, right?
Yes.
What was the inspiration behind you starting that? You've got all these other music things going on. You're like, let me add something else to my list.
Something else to get stressed about. I think that's it. Like exactly like what I was saying. I didn't want to face reality. I feel like every time I stopped last year, there was no release. I couldn't play football with my mates. I couldn't go down to the pub. So I was low whenever I stopped. So I didn't stop. So, okay, well, I'll do a Bangers and Mash podcast. I'll do this. What I call it is a hybrid of a radio show and a podcast. And I was like, I'd wanted to do it for a while. I was like, oh, now I've got the time, like, do it. So sorry about that. So the idea of it was, I just wanted to talk to people, my friends in all walks of life, whether that be musicians or whether that be, celebrity friends who I'd met along the way, and talk about music and life. And I wanted to open those conversations up so that the rest of the world could hear and discover new music and also be inspired by great life stories, basically. And I asked a load of people, and to be honest with you, I didn't expect many people to say yes. And then like some really big people like Marvin Humes, who's quite really well known over here, and we had a former boxing world champion, Johnny Nelson. So people with quite substantial followings over here started to say yes. And then everyone wanted to get involved. And people were like, can I be a guest? And it was so cool. And for me, it's like, for the listener, the listeners have been loving it. And it's been a great way to show them more about my personality and also just inspire them. But on a networking perspective as well, like, I've made so many friends now. Like, because after an hour talking to someone on a Zoom, like, I feel like I'm your friend now, Kate. You know what I mean? Because
for sure, Luke. Yes.
You know what I mean? Because like we feel like
yes.
I know I've been doing all the talking. I'm sorry. I'd love to get to know you a bit better as well. But in terms of like when you're on a Zoom, like if I'd met some of them I didn't know particularly well before, but we were just Instagram friends. And now like I feel like, oh, you're actually like a really good pal of mine, and so in terms of that, for that, and I wasn't even set out to be a networking tool, but it really has benefited my relationships with such talented people within the industry as well. So it's a plus plus for everything for me. Other than the time it takes to edit, it's it's so much fun.
Oh gosh, yeah. I think you kind of said it right, like when you're talking about like the networking aspect, because you know, before COVID, we all definitely, you're on tour, you're at shows.
Yeah,
That's how you're right. Where you're
yeah.
just going about life, even right, like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, in a coffee shop or picking up lunch somewhere, and you're interacting with people, and you're doing
Yeah,
that. So it's kind of such a brilliant thing. I think something like this, it's like you are able to connect people, make people feel, also for you as an artist, like they can feel like your fans can feel like, oh, like we know a little bit more about Luke, more than just,
yeah.
sometimes that's hard to get all that content right and about you
Uh-huh.
across like on Instagram. So it's
Yeah.
kind of a great way for people to feel like, yeah, like they're connected to you, and have that like moment that feels real versus, you know,
Yeah.
maybe just a facade of a quick 30-second something on an Instagram story.
100%, and I'm really honest on that show. Like, I mean, I try to be honest all the time, but there's certain platforms that are enable you to be even more honest, and that certainly is one. And even listening to the guests that I have, I feel I feel empowered after talking to them, like, because they've got lessons to teach me, and I haven't been able to meet other people to learn those lessons as much. So I'm really grateful for it, and it's something that I see myself carrying on forever, and eventually, like, I want to have a bangers and mash show, like a Jules Holland type thing. Um, or like I want Rodney Jerkins to be a guest one day. Like I really do
Heck
see
yeah.
this as being something that I carry on for the rest of my life and becoming a brand and whatever. I've got big hopes for it.
Luke, I think I mean, just you get so fired up about these things. You can tell, and you have such a drive. Like I completely imagining that happening for you. Like there's
Thank you.
without a doubt.
I
For
appreciate that.
sure.
We've got a dream, right? We've got a dream.
So you've had such like a wonderful journey, right? And you
Hmm.
have learned kind of a lot along the way. Like, has there been anything that you've learned though that you wished you could have told your younger self, or that you just wish you could pass along to another artist?
I had this conversation the other day, and I think it'd really be hold on to that care less, basically. Hold on to that kind of the feeling of doing it just because you want to do it. You know, I think so many times now, certainly this year, I felt like I'm thinking about what's next so much. Like, I'm thinking about, oh, this could lead to this, or how do I get to there, or what have I got to do which is going to enable me to achieve that? And it's like, well, what about, right, actually enjoying what's going on, because it's pretty good. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that's what I'd say, and I'd also say don't doubt so much. And I think I worked that out recently, that I doubt myself a hell of a lot more than I'd like to admit, and I cover that up with a lot of things. But really, just accepting that nothing is perfect, and that's okay. But believe in your talent and your hard work, because you know. I really do put my whole life and soul into this, and I'm really super proud of what I've done, but I can often get lost in it, and really I'm living a dream here, and there was a point where I knew that, I think, or I didn't know it, but I didn't care. I was just doing it. I don't
Yeah.
even know if that's answered that question at all.
No, that's brilliant. I actually was slightly getting lost in your answer out of, I was like, wow, like you're really speaking to me. Like I feel this one. I feel it personally.
Well, as long as you did, that's what it matters. Who cares about anyone else? Think I'm rambling on like a bad
Yeah,
guy.
this is an A-B conversation, you guys. See your way out.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, a couple more for you, because we don't want to hold you here all day. I do want to just go back real quick, just on talking about with the sync on Love Island, like for an artist that is trying to figure out how to get their music placed on a show. You obviously had the song, right? You sent it off to a little indie distro, but like, Do you have any other, I guess, advice for someone who's a little lost in that part?
Look, in all honesty, I have advice on a whole load of things, um, in terms of how to, I guess, think or approach so much of music and how we do it. But in terms of sync or opportunities like that, it's just hustle. That's the only thing I can say. It's just hustle and network. And I'm not even like natural at networking. I'm not. I just. But the harder you work and the more places you go, the more people you'll meet and the more people will respond to you. And you never know what person you meet at that open mic that you didn't really fancy going to that can introduce you to something. Like mine was just like a lot of luck, if we're being honest. Like there was no calculation in terms of like, it was just that was it, and this particular label had a good relationship with that particular company, but they sent over a load of songs as well as so many other companies did, and I was lucky that they chose mine. So you got to be in it to win it. That's all I would say. But I'm looking for the next one. So if anyone's got any advice, please send that to me.
Like, well, also, Luke will take anybody else's suggestions
Yeah,
of.
I don't know the answers here. I'm just winging it.
But like you said, it almost is something. It is. It sounds so simple. It is hard, but it is kind of so simple. It's getting out there, and you never know, right? It's like that's why you just always have to be ready.
And I hate saying that because it's like I know there'll someone be listening going, "Oh, but I've been out here for so many years and no one's listening." It's like I felt like that. I felt like that last month. Do you know what I mean? And so there's never a sort of a bar where you'll stop thinking like that. I could be number one, and then 2 weeks later feeling like that, or feeling like, oh, I'm not enough or not. Do you know what I mean? So it's always like I don't like saying it because but at the same time it is you have to be in it to win it. And unless you are, you can make excuses for it. You can say, "Oh, the industry know nothing. I'm greater than everyone thinks they are." Cool, but if you stop, then no one gets to hear you today. Do you know what I mean? So you got to give it a go.
Because sometimes you might be at it for 8 years and 5 days, and you're like, "That's it. I've done 8 years and 5 days." But it was like 8 years and 6 days. Your moment was coming.
That's
So
it. That's it. And also as well, I'm trying to start thinking now, like rather than there's one thing happening, like it's happening. Do you know what I mean? In terms of okay, Scala. Like, did I ever think that I'd be selling out Scala this soon? Probably not. Like, that's great. So I am living my dream. I am, rather than there's one day I'm gonna make it. It's like I'm making it. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to start walking like that and living like that. I'm living out my dream. And I'm trying to enjoy the process of it. Rather than constantly thinking, I've got to get there or there or there or there, because it's just a never-ending barrier. It's just a never-ending bar.
and I wanted to end it with asking you what's next for Luke Burr, but I also feel like, yeah, you don't want to look that far, right? You don't want to do that because you never know. But looking even a little bit ahead, do you have sort of an idea of like, yeah, some like the next goal?
Yeah. Look, and for me, it's about staying consistent. It's about constantly releasing music. I've got the title track from this current project that I'm releasing. I'm releasing a song every 6 to 8 weeks for this project. I released a song last month called Slow Down, and the first song was called 4 a.m. And the next song is the title track and the lead single of this project called Let You Down. And then there's one more song on the project to go. And then after that, it will be, okay, where's the next song? We need to release that. Going on tour as well around the time of Scala, to a UK regional tour, which is great. Potential feature opportunities, write songs, constantly be doing all I can do to achieve my dream and connect with as many people as I can with my music. That's what it constantly is. And, of course, I have my big dreams and my big goals. I'm talking as if I'm constantly living the moment. I don't. I'm the opposite to that. But I'm, I'm trying to.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah, absolutely, it is a work in progress. And so yeah, that's where we're at with it. And the dream is to be out in LA soon, selling out the Greek Theatre one day. And
there you go.
Yeah,
We're
that's
gonna
where
be
we'll
there.
be. Yeah, we'll be there. That's where we'll be. And up till that point, and at that point, it's just hard work and honing the craft.
Luke, you're awesome. You're seriously awesome. You're very inspiring. I think, I feel super inspired just chatting with you. And I know a lot of other people are going to listen and go, oh my gosh, that guy, Luke. Yeah, I feel like I'm his friend now too. And I think that's amazing. We could talk for days, but thank you for like taking the time to do this. It means a lot. And it's great to have you on the show. So thank you.
And thank you so much for being such a beautiful and wonderful host and interviewer. And thank you for listening as well. I'm so sorry if I've rambled on. I have a tendency to get rather passionate about subjects and go off and think, oh my God, I've just been talking for like 10 minutes. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fantastic. You're fantastic. Thank you so much. I know we're all stoked. So thank you. This episode of Breaking Sound, My Story, was made by editing help from our in-house editing team. Did you know this episode was filmed also? Watch it on our official BSTV channel. Our Breaking Sound, My Story podcast is just a small part of how we support emerging artists. Discover more at www.breakingsound.com. To support our podcast, you can get a Breaking Sound, My Story t-shirt by visiting breakingsound.com/merch. You can also follow the show on Instagram and Facebook at Breaking Sound Podcast. My name is Cage Sanderson. Thanks for listening.